She was 18. She had been kicked out 3 weeks before, and now she stood at the end of a grass path on the west coast of Ireland, suitcase behind her, wind off the Atlantic pulling at her hair, a piece of paper folded in her jacket pocket. The paper said the cottage was hers. She had paid €1 for it. The cottage in front of her looked like it had given up. Slate roof half collapsed. Chimney leaning. Oak door barely on its hinges. Wild roses climbing the walls like they wanted to pull the whole thing down into the earth. Ada Nwosu stood there for a long time, just looking, because she did not yet know that under the hearth of that crumbling stone cottage, sealed since the Second World War, was something that had been waiting for her. Not for someone, for her. For 80 years. But that part comes later. Right now, we have to go back to Boston. Because to understand what she found in Ireland, you have to understand what she lost in America first. Her name was Adaeze Nwosu. Everyone called her Ada. She was born in Brookline, Massachusetts, October of 2007, to Nigerian parents who had come to America in the late 1990s with 2 suitcases and a plan. The plan worked. Her father, Emeka, became a software engineer at a company outside Boston. Her mother, Kioma, became a nurse practitioner at Brigham and Women's. They bought a small house on a quiet street where the maple trees turned orange every October. They sent Ada to good public schools. They paid every bill on time. They had built the American dream. They had built it brick by brick. And they were not going to let their only daughter take a hammer to it. But Ada did not know that yet. As a child, she only knew the warmth of that small house, the smell of jollof rice on Sunday afternoons, the way her father hummed high life songs while he cooked, the way her mother braided her hair every Saturday night before church. She was an only child. She was a quiet child. She read everything she could find. And she had a grandmother. Her grandmother's name was Ifeoma. Ifeoma lived in Lagos. Every year when Ada was small, Ifeoma flew across the ocean to spend a month in the Brookline house. She arrived with a wheeled suitcase full of palm oil and dried fish and stories. She filled every room with the smell of egusi soup. She filled every silence with laughter so deep it shook the windows. Ifeoma taught Ada how to braid her own hair. Ifeoma taught Ada how to cook stew with 3 peppers. Ifeoma taught Ada how to read the sky before a thunderstorm. But more than anything, Ifeoma taught Ada how to be loved without conditions. That was the part that mattered. That was the part that broke her later. When Ada was 12 on the last day of one of Ifeoma's visits, the old woman took a small gold ring off her own finger and put it on Ada's right index finger. The ring had a single tiny turquoise stone in the center, pale blue, worn smooth by 60 years of wear. "This is my wedding ring," Ifeoma said, "from 1962. Grandma, I can't take that." "You can, you will." "Why?" Ifeoma smiled. The corners of her eyes folded into 100 small lines. "Because rings know things." "What does that mean?" "You'll find out." That was the entire conversation. Ada wore the ring every day after that. To school. To bed. In the shower. She touched it when she was nervous. She touched it when she was happy. She touched it when she was writing, which was often, because by the time Ada was 12, she was already writing. She had a journal her grandmother had brought her from Lagos. Leather cover, cream-colored pages. Inside it, Ada wrote poems. Bad poems at first. Then less bad poems. Then poems that made her teacher pause when she read them out loud in class. But she did not show her parents. Some part of her knew. Even at 12. Some part of her already knew. When Ada was 14, Ifeoma died. She died in Lagos, in her sleep, in the same bed she had slept in for 50 years. The phone rang at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Ada was eating cereal. She heard her mother answer the phone in the kitchen. She heard her mother say one word in Igbo. Then she heard her mother sit down hard on a kitchen chair. Ada knew before she walked into the kitchen. She just knew. "Grandma," Ada said. Her mother looked up. Her mother's face was already changing, already closing. "Yes." "When?" "Last night, in her sleep." Ada sat down across from her mother. She did not cry. Not yet. "We're going to Lagos for the funeral." "Right." Her mother did not answer. Her father walked in then, already dressed for work. He looked at his wife. He looked at his daughter. He looked at the cereal bowl going soggy in front of Ada. "We need to talk about that," he said. "What's there to talk about? She's my grandmother." "It's a 14-hour flight, Ada." "I know how long it is." "It's also $4,000 per person." So your father and I will go. You'll stay with Aunt Ndidi." "I'm not staying with Aunt Ndidi. Ada. She was my grandmother. And she was my mother." That was the line that ended the conversation. Ada did not go to Lagos. Her parents went for 10 days. Ada stayed in Brookline with her aunt. She went to school. She came home. She did her homework. She wrote 3 poems about her grandmother that no one would ever read. When her parents came back, they brought her a small carved wooden box. Inside the box was a photograph of Ifeoma's grave. Fresh red earth, white flowers. The name Ifeoma Adiaze Nwosu carved into a simple stone. Ada looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she closed the box. She did not open it again. Something broke in her that day. Not loudly, not all at once, but something cracked, the way a windshield cracks. A thin line that gets longer every week, and every time she touched the turquoise ring on her finger, she felt the crack get a little bit longer. The years after that were quiet. She got good grades because good grades were required. She did her homework because homework was required. She went to church because church was required. But in the rest of her time, in the time that was hers, she wrote. She wrote on the bus. She wrote at lunch. She wrote in the back of math class. She wrote in her bedroom at midnight while her parents slept down the hall. She filled 3 notebooks, then 5, then 9. She did not show her parents. When she was 16, she won a small regional poetry award, $100 and a printed certificate. The award was given at a Saturday morning ceremony at the public library in Newton. Her parents came. They sat in the second row. Her father wore a tie. Her mother wore the gold earrings she only wore for special occasions. When Ada walked up to the stage to receive her certificate, her mother clapped harder than anyone in the room. Her father stood up. In the car on the way home, her mother said, "That was a wonderful ceremony." "Thank you." "You write very well, Ada." "Thank you." A pause. Then, "Have you started thinking about pre-med programs for college?" Ada looked out the window. "No, Mom." "You should. Junior year is the time to start." "I don't want to do pre-med." A longer pause. Her father's hands tightening on the steering wheel. "What do you want to do?" "I want to write." "That's not a career, Ada." "Why not?" "Because writers don't eat." That was the end of the conversation. Her mother said it without anger, without raising her voice, the way you would say the sky is blue or water is wet or fire burns. Because writers don't eat, like it was simply a fact of the world. Ada said nothing for the rest of the drive home. She sat in the back seat with her certificate folded on her lap. She touched the turquoise ring on her finger. Because rings know things. She didn't know what the ring knew yet, but she was starting to listen. She was 17 when she did it. She applied to a writing program at a small college in Vermont. Without telling her parents, she used her own savings to pay the application fee. $45 from her babysitting money. She wrote her essays on the school library computers. She submitted the application on a Tuesday in November. She got the acceptance letter on a Friday in March. The mail came at 3 p.m. Ada was at school. Her father was the one who got home first. He opened the mail like he always did. Bills, catalogs, an envelope with a college logo. He opened that one too. Ada walked through the front door at 4:15. Her father was sitting at the kitchen table. The acceptance letter was face up between his hands. He did not look up. "Dad." "Sit down." "Dad, I was gonna tell you." "Sit down, Ada." She sat down. Her father slid the letter across the table. "Is this real?" "Yes." "You applied without telling us?" "Yes." "You filled out forms, wrote essays, submitted everything without telling us?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, like he was confirming something to himself. Then her mother walked in. Her mother saw the letter on the table. Her mother saw her husband's face. Her mother saw her daughter. Her mother did not sit down. What followed was a conversation that lasted 90 minutes, most of it in Igbo. Ada only understood pieces, words, phrases. The way her father said the word respect. The way her mother said the word shame. The way both of them said the word future, like they were spitting it onto the floor. Ada sat at the kitchen table and listened. She did not cry. She did not argue. She had argued with them before. She knew what arguing got you. It got you nothing. When the conversation ended, her mother turned to her in English and said, "You will not attend that school, Mom. We will not pay for it. Mom, please, if you want to be a writer, you can be a writer somewhere else. Not on our money. Not in our house. Mom, go to your room, Adaise." Ada went to her room. She wrote in her journal for 2 hours straight. She wrote until her hand cramped. She graduated high school in June. The ceremony was on a Wednesday at the high school football field. 623 graduates. Her parents came. Her mother wore the gold earrings. Her father wore the tie. They took a photograph of her in her cap and gown. In the photograph, Ada is smiling. In the photograph, she does not yet know what is going to happen. 2 weeks later, on the morning of her 18th birthday, Ada came downstairs at 7:30 a.m. The house was quiet. The lights were off. Her suitcase was sitting by the front door. Packed. Zipped. All ready. On top of the suitcase was an envelope. Her mother's handwriting on the front. Just her name. Adaise. She opened it. Inside the envelope was a single folded sheet of paper and $300 in cash. 20s mostly. A few 10s. Folded once. The letter said, "Adaise, we love you, but we cannot watch you make these choices. When you are ready to be serious about your life, you know where to find us." Mom and Dad. Ada read the letter once. She read it again. She did not call out for her parents. She did not knock on their bedroom door. She did not ask if this was a joke. She knew it wasn't. She put the letter in her jacket pocket. She put the $300 in her wallet. She picked up the suitcase. She picked up the canvas tote bag that held her leather journal and her laptop. She opened the front door. She walked out. She did not look back. She heard the door close behind her. She heard the lock click. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. She got on the first bus that came. She did not know where she was going yet, but she was going. She spent the first night at a Best Western in Cambridge. She paid $114 for a room with a queen bed and a coffee maker. She lay on top of the covers in her clothes. She stared at the ceiling. She did not sleep. In the morning, she did the math. $300 minus 114 equaled 186. One night. That was one night. She checked out at 7 a.m. and walked to a coffee shop. She ordered a small coffee and used their Wi-Fi to search for cheaper places to stay. She found a youth hostel near North Station. $35 a night. Shared bathroom. Bunk beds. She walked there. She paid for 3 nights up front. That left her with $81. $81 to figure out the rest of her life. She sat in the hostel common room with her laptop open. She drank cup after cup of bad coffee from the dispenser in the corner. She made lists. Get a job. Find an apartment. Apply to community college. Apply for emergency financial aid. Call the Vermont school. Beg. She called the Vermont school. The admissions counselor was kind, but also direct. Without your parents on the FAFSA, you won't qualify for enough aid. Not for our program. I'm so sorry, Ada. There's no way. You could try to establish independence, but that takes a year, sometimes 2. Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you. She hung up. She sat in the hostel common room for a long time. She touched the turquoise ring on her finger. Because rings know things. But the ring was quiet. The ring was quiet for 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, she opened her suitcase fully for the first time. She had not really looked through it. She had just pulled out clothes as she needed them. She lifted out a sweater. She lifted out a pair of jeans. She lifted out a stack of underwear. And then she saw it. The inside lining of the suitcase, along the bottom, was slightly bunched, not flat, like something had been slipped underneath it. Ada pulled the lining back. There was a letter underneath. The envelope was old, yellowed at the edges. Her name on the front. In handwriting she had not seen in 4 years. Her grandmother's handwriting. Ifioma. Ada sat down on the edge of the bunk bed. Her hands shook. She opened the envelope very carefully. The letter inside was on thin airmail paper. 2 pages. Written in blue ink. My Adeza. If you are reading this, then you are 18 years old or close to it. I asked your mother to give this to you when the time came. I do not know what time means in this case. Perhaps your mother will know. I am writing this because I am dying. I have not told anyone. The doctors say it is my heart. They say I have a few months, maybe less. I have asked them not to tell your parents. There is no reason to make them sad before they need to be. But you, I need to tell you something. When you were small, I told you that rings know things. You laughed at me. You did not believe me. That was good. A child should laugh at her grandmother sometimes. But the ring on your finger was given to me by my mother, and my mother received it from her mother. And in my family, we have a story about this ring. A long time ago during the war, my brother Obi was a sailor in the Royal Navy. He was 19 years old when he left Lagos to fight. He was 20 when his ship was sunk in the cold waters off Ireland. We thought he was dead. We had a funeral. We mourned him for 3 months. Then he came home. He would not tell us where he had been. He had been missing for almost half a year. He came back to Nigeria thin and quiet and changed. He lived another 45 years. He never spoke about what happened in those months, except once, the night before he died. He told my mother that an Irish woman had saved his life. He said she hid him in a small stone cottage on the west coast of Ireland. He said she fed him and gave him clothes and helped him find a ship home. He said the cottage had a hearth as big as a doorway. He said the woman was tall and quiet, and her husband was at war. He said, "Mother, please find her. Please thank her." My mother promised. My mother died without keeping that promise. I promised my mother on her deathbed that I would keep it for her. I have not kept it either. I am old. I am sick. I will not be the one. Adayeze, my child. I am writing this in case you are the one. I do not know how I know. I just know. The ring on your finger has been waiting for the right hand. Perhaps it is yours. If you ever find yourself with nowhere else to go, go to the west coast of Ireland. Find a place that feels like a place that has been waiting. A place with sea, with gray stone, with an old hearth. There is a promise there that needs keeping. Forgive your parents. They love you in the way they know how. It is not the only way, but it is the way they have. Forgive me too, for not keeping the promise. Forgive the ring for taking so long. I love you, my Adaizi. I love you with everything I have. Grandma Ifeoma, June 2020. Ada read the letter. She read it again. She read it a third time. Then she put it down on the bunk bed, and she put her face in her hands, and she cried. She cried for 30 minutes. She had not cried in 4 years. When she finished crying, she picked the letter up again. She read the part about Ireland, a place with sea, with gray stone, with an old hearth. She opened her laptop. She typed 3 words into the search bar. Cheap. Cottage. Ireland. The first page of results was useless. Real estate sites for tourists. Vacation rentals. $20,000 fixer-uppers in Cork. She kept scrolling. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. On page 5, she found a small listing on a County Mayo Council website. The kind of website that hadn't been updated in years. The kind of website with broken images and clunky fonts. The listing was for a stone cottage on a half-acre of land near a village called Achill Sound, on the far northwestern coast of Ireland. The cottage had been abandoned since 1953. The asking price was €1. Ada stared at the screen. She read the description. Stone cottage. Half acre. No vehicle access. Footpath only. Water from well. Roof in disrepair. Walls sound. Buyer must commit to restoration within 5 years. Buyer must register as resident of parish. Buyer must respect cultural and historical significance of property. €1. About $1.10 in American money. Ada touched the turquoise ring on her finger. The ring was no longer quiet. The ring was loud. She booked a standby ticket to Dublin that night. It cost $312. She put it on a credit card she had opened for emergencies. She would worry about paying it back later. Later was a future Ada problem. Now was a now Ada problem. She emailed the parish council in County Mayo. She told them she was 18 years old, American, that she was interested in the cottage listed on their website, that she was ready to come immediately. She did not really expect a reply. But 20 minutes later, an email came back. It was from a woman named Nuala Carney. The email was 4 sentences long. Dear Adiaze, we will be glad to meet you. The cottage is still available. It has been for a very long time. Safe travels. Ada packed her suitcase. She paid for one more night at the hostel. She did not sleep. She flew out of Logan Airport the next afternoon. Stand by. She got the last seat on the plane, a middle seat between a man who smelled like garlic and a teenage boy who fell asleep against her shoulder. She did not sleep on the plane either. She landed in Dublin at 6:30 in the morning. The light was gray. The air was cold. The wind smelled like salt and something else. Something she did not have a name for yet. She took a bus to Houston Station. She took a train to Westport in County Mayo. The train ride was 3.5 hours. She watched the green country roll by and tried not to think about how much money was left in her wallet. She had $43 left. She had paid for the train ticket in euros she had gotten at the airport. The exchange rate was bad. The fees were worse. $43. In a country where she did not know anyone. In a country she had never been to before. But Westport was beautiful. She walked from the train station into the town center. Painted shop fronts in pinks and yellows and blues. A stone bridge over a small river. The sound of gulls. A man playing a fiddle on the corner of an alley. She bought a roll and a cup of tea at a bakery for €3. She asked the woman at the counter how to get to Achill Sound. The bus, pet, twice a day. There's one at 11:30. Where does it leave from? Just down the road, by the green sign. Ada thanked her. She found the bus stop. She waited. The bus came. It was a small white minibus with 12 seats. 6 of them already had people in them. Older women with shopping bags. A man with a fishing pole. A boy on his way to visit his grandmother in Mulranny. Ada paid the fare. €5. She sat by the window. The bus drove west. The country changed as they went. The hills got bigger. The stone walls multiplied. The trees thinned out. The sky got wider. After an hour, the bus came over a rise, and the Atlantic Ocean opened up in front of them like a hand uncurling. Ada stopped breathing for a moment. She had never seen the Atlantic from the other side before. She had only ever seen it from Cape Cod, where it was gentle and tame, where it lapped at the sand. This was not that ocean. This ocean was gray and silver and enormous. It crashed against black cliffs in the distance. It moved like a thing that was alive, like a thing that had been alive for a very long time. The bus turned south along the coast. It drove past stone farmhouses, past fields full of sheep, past a small church with a slate roof. It stopped at the village of Achill Sound at 1:15 in the afternoon. Ada got off. The bus drove away. She stood on the side of the road with her suitcase and her tote bag and $43 in her wallet. There was almost nothing there. A few houses, a pub called Mulligan's, a post office the size of a closet, a small parish church, a road that ran along the water, a wind that did not stop. She walked toward the church. Next to the church was a small stone building with a sign that said, Parish Council of Achill Sound. She pushed the door open. There was a small bell on a string above the door. The bell rang. A woman behind the desk looked up. The woman was in her 60s, curly gray hair, reading glasses on a chain, a framed photograph of the Sacred Heart behind her, a cup of tea steaming on the desk. The woman looked at Ada. The woman looked at her again. You'd be a daisy. Yes, ma'am. Sit down, pet. You look like you haven't slept in days. Ada sat down. Nuala Carney studied her over the rim of her reading glasses. You came from America? Yes, ma'am. By yourself? Yes, ma'am. For a cottage you've never seen? Yes, ma'am. Nuala nodded slowly, like she was filing the information away. How old are you, pet? 18. 18. Yes, ma'am. A pause. Where are your parents? Ada looked at her hands. She did not answer. Nuala did not push. Nuala just nodded once and reached for a form in a drawer. Right then. Let's get the paperwork started. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. She set it on the desk. She uncapped a pen. The cottage is called the Brennan Place. Doherty Place, actually. Sorry, I keep mixing them up. It's been the Doherty cottage since the 1920s. Before that, it was Brennan Land. The locals still call it both. Doherty, Ada said. That's right. The last owner was a woman named Margaret Doherty. Maggie, everyone called her. She left the cottage in 1953. She moved to America. She died there in 1978. No will, no heirs. The cottage reverted to the parish. Nuala wrote on the form. It's been listed for €1 since 2004. We've had inquiries, from English retirees mostly, a few Germans. None of them have ever come all the way out here to look. She paused. She looked up at Ada. You're the first one who came. Oh, from America no less. I had a one-way ticket. I can see that, pet. Nuala smiled. The smile crinkled her whole face. Do you have the euro? Ada reached into her pocket. She had exchanged a small amount of cash in the airport. She had a few euro coins. She took out a €1 coin and put it on the desk. Nuala looked at the coin. Nuala looked at Ada. Nuala slid the coin back across the desk. Keep it, pet. You'll need it for food. But I'll cover it. I'll put one in the box for you. It's €1. The parish will survive. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see the cottage. Nuala finished filling out the form. She turned it around. She pointed to a line at the bottom. Sign here, pet. Ada signed. Adiaze Nwosu. In careful printed letters. The pen scratched against the paper. Nuala signed below her. Nuala stamped the form with a small rubber stamp. She filed it in a folder marked Deeds and Transfers 2025. Then she looked up. Welcome to County Mayo, Miss Nwosu. Ada nodded. She did not trust her voice. Nuala gave her directions to the cottage. It was 3 miles down the coast road. Then off the road up a grass path between stone walls. The path led to a rise. The cottage was on the other side of the rise. You'll know it when you see it, Nuala said. There's nothing else out there. Ada thanked her. She picked up her suitcase. She turned to go. At the door, she paused. She turned back. Mrs. Carney. Nuala. Just Nuala Pet. Why did the cottage stay empty? Nuala took off her reading glasses. She folded them. She set them on the desk. Because Maggie loved it. And when Maggie left, no one in the village would touch it. Not for a long time. Some places hold on to people, even after the people are gone. That doesn't really answer my question. No pet. I suppose it doesn't. A pause. Then Nuala said, some people would say the cottage was waiting. Waiting for what? That's the part nobody knows. Ada walked the 3 miles to the cottage. She walked slowly. The road was narrow. The wind came in steady gusts off the water. Sheep watched her from the fields. A pair of magpies called from a hawthorn hedge. After 2 miles, the road turned to a dirt track. After another half-mile, the dirt track turned to grass. She came over the rise. And there it was. It was smaller than she had imagined. About 25 feet long, 15 feet wide. A single rectangular building of rough-cut gray stones held together with crumbling mortar. The roof was slate, patched with moss. A whole section near the middle had partly fallen in. A single tall chimney rose from the center of the cottage. One side of the chimney had collapsed. The remaining side was straight and strong. There were 2 small windows, one on either side of a heavy oak door. The door hung slightly open on rusted iron hinges. Around the cottage, the remains of an old garden, wild roses climbing the south wall, foxglove growing in spikes of purple, a sagging wooden gate leaning against the stone wall, and beyond the cottage in every direction the rolling green hills of West Ireland, and beyond the hills, the sea. Ada set her suitcase down. She walked to the cottage. She put her hand on the oak door. She pushed it open. The hinges groaned. She stepped inside. The interior was a single room. The floor was flagstone, gray, the same stone as the walls, covered in dust and small bits of fallen slate, and a thin layer of bird droppings near the broken section of roof. The walls were the rough interior side of the stones, uneven, textured, the mortar between them dark with age. The ceiling was open to the rafters, dark wooden beams, some of them split, most of them sound. And at one end of the room was the hearth. The hearth was enormous. It took up almost the entire north wall, a massive stone fireplace big enough for a grown woman to stand inside. An iron crane still hanging from a hook on the inner wall, for holding cooking pots over the fire. The hearthstone in front of the firebox was a single flat slab of gray stone, maybe 5 feet wide, 3 feet deep, thick, heavy, worn smooth in the center by 150 years of feet. Ada walked across the room toward the hearth. The flagstones were uneven under her boots. The closer she got to the hearth, the slower she walked. She knelt down in front of it. She put her palm flat on the hearthstone. The stone was cold. Of course it was cold. The fire had not been lit in 70 years, but Ada stayed kneeling there, with her hand on the stone, for a long time. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about the letter in her jacket pocket. She thought about the brother named Obi, who had been hidden in a stone cottage on the west coast of Ireland during the war. She thought about a tall, quiet woman named Maggie Doherty, whose husband had been at war. She thought about how long the cottage had waited, how long a hearth could hold. She lifted her hand from the stone. She looked at her palm. It was dusted with soot. She wiped it on her jeans. She did not yet know about the cavity beneath the hearthstone. She did not yet know what was inside it. But the cottage knew. The cottage had always known. The roof was too damaged to sleep under that night. The clouds were low and gray. The wind smelled like rain. Ada did not have a tarp. She did not have a sleeping bag. She did not have anywhere safe to put her suitcase if a real storm came in. She walked back to the village. She walked into Mulligan's pub. The pub was warm. The pub smelled like peat smoke and roast meat and old wood. A few men sat at the bar. They turned to look at her. They turned back to their drinks. A woman behind the bar smiled. "You'd be the American girl." "How did you know?" "Nuala called me. Said you'd be coming." "Oh. I'm Aisling. The rooms upstairs are 25 euros a night. We do dinner till 9. Can I see the room? I'll show you up, pet." The room was small, single bed, white sheets, a window looking out over the road and the water beyond, a small table with a lamp, a chair, a radiator that clicked when Aisling turned it on. It was the kindest room Ada had been in since she had left Boston. She paid for 2 nights up front, 50 euros. That left her with very little, but it was enough. She had her cottage. She had her grandmother's letter. She had her ring. She had enough. She ate dinner downstairs at a small table by the window. Shepherd's pie, brown bread with butter, a pot of tea. The food cost 12 euros. She paid it without flinching. She wrote in her journal for an hour at the table. She wrote about the cottage, about Nuala, about the wind, about the way the hills rolled down to the water like a body lying on its side. She did not write about her parents, not yet. She went up to bed at 10. She turned off the lamp. She lay in the small bed under the white sheets. She listened to the wind outside the window. She listened to the murmur of the men still drinking downstairs. She listened to the rain that finally started. She closed her eyes. And then she dreamed. In the dream, she was inside the cottage. The cottage was clean. The roof was repaired. A fire burned low in the hearth. A lamp glowed on a shelf above the mantel. The air smelled like peat smoke and bread. A woman stood next to the hearth. The woman was tall and thin. Her hair was white. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. She wore a long blue dress. The kind of dress women wore in old photographs. The woman was looking at Ada. The woman was smiling. A small, tired, kind smile. Ada did not feel afraid. She did not know why she did not feel afraid. The woman spoke. Her voice was soft. Her voice had an Irish lilt, old, worn. Finally, the woman said, "Someone has brought that name home." "What name?" The woman did not answer. The woman just looked at the hearth. Ada looked at the hearth too. The hearthstone, the big flat slab, was glowing very faintly, like there was a light underneath it, like there was something underneath it. Ada took a step toward the hearth. The woman in the blue dress put one hand out. "Stop. Wait." The woman said, "Not yet, but soon." "What's under there?" "What I could not carry." "I don't understand." The woman smiled again. "You will." Ada woke up. The clock on the small table said 4:11 a.m. The rain had stopped. The wind was still moving outside the window. Ada sat up slowly. She turned on the lamp. She looked at the turquoise ring on her finger. It looked the same as it always had. It was just a ring. It was just a ring. Except Ada touched her own face. Her cheeks were wet. She had been crying in her sleep. She did not remember crying. She did not remember anything except the woman in the blue dress and the words, "Someone has brought that name home." What name, Ada lay back down. She did not sleep again. She stared at the ceiling until the sky outside the window started to turn from black to gray, from gray to the color of pale stone, from the color of pale stone to the color of a sea about to clear. She watched the morning come. The second day, Ada brought a broom. She bought it at the small hardware store in the village. €8, plus a dustpan, plus a pair of work gloves, plus a flashlight with batteries, plus a roll of black trash bags. €22 gone. She had 21 left. 21 euros, which is roughly $23, which is not enough money to do anything except sweep a cottage. So that is what she did. She walked the 3 miles back. She pushed the oak door open. She stepped inside. And she stood there in the gray morning light, with the broom in her hand, staring at 70 years of dust. And she thought, where do I even start? She started in the corner. She always started in the corner. When her grandmother had taught her to clean a kitchen, Ifioma had said, start in a corner, work outward. Never let the mess look at you. Look at the mess. Look at one piece of the mess. That is all. Ada looked at one corner. She started sweeping. The dust rose up around her in clouds, pale and thick. She had to stop every few minutes to cough, to open the door wider, to let the wind do half the work. She worked for 3 hours. By noon, she had swept half the floor. She had filled 2 trash bags with leaves and bird droppings, and slate fragments and the small, dry corpses of mice that had not survived the last cold winter. She sat down on the hearthstone. She drank water from a plastic bottle she had filled at Mulligan's. She looked at the cottage. Half of it was clean now. Half of it was still 70 years old. And the half that was clean was beautiful. The flagstones were dark gray, almost black where they had been swept, smooth in the centers where 100 years of feet had worn them down. The walls were pale gray with darker veins. The mortar between the stones was the color of old bone. It was beautiful. She had paid €1 for this, for something beautiful. She sat on the hearthstone and ate a piece of bread she had wrapped in a napkin from the pub. The bread was a little stale. It did not matter. She thought about her parents. She did not want to. But she did. It had been 3 weeks and 4 days since they had put her suitcase by the door. 3 weeks, 4 days, 22 hours. She knew the time exactly. She did not let herself look at her phone often. She did not let herself check for messages, because every time she checked there was nothing. And every time there was nothing, it hurt a little more. But she checked anyway. She pulled out her phone now. She had bought an Irish SIM card at the Dublin airport. €3. She had texted her parents her new number on the first day. She had typed, "I'm safe. I'm in Ireland." That was all. She had not gotten a reply. She checked now. Nothing. She put the phone back in her pocket. She picked up the broom. She kept sweeping. Section 17. Bridget O'Hara. The first person came to visit her on the 4th day. She did not know her name yet. She was bent low in front of the firebox, scrubbing the inside of the hearth with a wire brush she had bought for €2. The hearth was so deep she could fit her whole upper body inside it. She had a flashlight balanced on the hearthstone pointing in. She was covered in soot. Her hair was tied up in a bandana. Her hands were black. She heard footsteps on the path outside. Slow footsteps, a cane tapping on stone. She crawled backwards out of the firebox. She turned around. An old woman stood in the doorway of the cottage. She was very small, maybe 4'9", stooped, white hair pulled back in a tight bun, a wool cardigan the color of moss, a cane in her left hand, a small bundle wrapped in a tea towel in her right. The old woman looked at Ada. Ada looked at the old woman. The old woman said, "You're scrubbing it wrong, pet." Ada blinked. "I'm sorry. Wire brush on Connemara stone. You'll scratch it raw. Use a soft brush. Hot water. A little vinegar. Patience." Ada did not know what to say. The old woman stepped into the cottage, slowly, her cane tapping on the flagstones. She set the bundle down on the small wooden table Ada had not yet repaired. She unwrapped the tea towel. Inside the tea towel was a loaf of brown bread, still warm. The smell of it filled the room. Yeast, buttermilk, a faint hint of treacle. "My name is Bridget," the old woman said. "Bridget O'Hara. I live half a mile down the road. The cottage with the blue door. I'm Ada. I know who you are, pet. You do. Everyone in the parish knows who you are. There aren't enough of us left to keep secrets." Bridget sat down on the wooden chair. Carefully. The chair creaked. She rested her cane against her knee. She looked around the cottage. For a long time, her face did not change, but her eyes did. Her eyes went soft, the way water goes soft when the wind drops. "How old are you, pet?" 18. 18. "Yes, ma'am." "And you bought this place for €1? "Yes, ma'am." "By yourself?" "Yes, ma'am." Bridget nodded slowly. She looked at the hearth. She looked back at Ada. "I am 88 years old, Adeze. I was born in 1937, in the house I still live in, half a mile down the road. I have lived in this parish my whole life. I have seen people come. I have seen people go. I have seen this cottage empty since I was 16 years old. 16. Yes, pet. I was 16 the last time anyone lived here." Ada sat down slowly on the hearthstone. "You knew her," Ada said. "Who?" "The woman who lived here." A long pause. Bridget's hand tightened on the head of her cane. "Maggie," Bridget said. "Her name was Maggie Doherty." The hearth seemed to lean in a little. Or maybe Ada just imagined it. "Tell me about her," Ada said. Bridget looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'll need a cup of tea first, pet. My throat is dry." Ada had no kettle, no stove, no way to make tea. She walked down to Mulligan's. She came back with a thermos of tea and 2 cups borrowed from Ashling. She poured for Bridget. Bridget wrapped both hands around the cup. She took a long, slow sip. She started to talk. Maggie Doherty was tall, taller than her husband. Most women in the parish at that time were not tall. Maggie was almost 6 feet. She had brown hair. She had eyes the color of slate. She was a quiet woman, a serious woman. But when she laughed, the whole village heard it. She had a laugh like a horse, loud, honest. The kind of laugh that makes you laugh just to hear it. Ada listened. She did not interrupt. Her husband was Thomas Doherty. He was from the next parish over. He was a fisherman. He was a kind man, a quiet man. He loved Maggie the way some men love. The kind of love that does not need to be spoken about every day. It just is. Like the weather, like the tide. They lived here. They built it. Or rather, they rebuilt it. The cottage was older than them by 100 years, but it was in ruins when they married. Thomas's father had owned the land. After Thomas married Maggie, he and Maggie spent 2 years rebuilding the cottage with their own hands, stone by stone, beam by beam, slate by slate. Bridget took another sip of her tea. She looked at the hearth. This hearth was Maggie's pride. She designed it herself, larger than any hearth in the parish, big enough for a woman to cook for 12 people in. Thomas would tease her. He would say, "Maggie, we have no children yet. Who is going to eat all this food you're going to cook?" And Maggie would laugh, and she would say, "We'll see, Thomas, we'll see." A pause, a long one. They never had children, Bridget said. Oh, Thomas went to England in 1939. He joined the British Army. Foolish man. He didn't have to go. Ireland was neutral. But he could not stand to sit still while the world burned. He said he had to do something. Maggie did not stop him. She could not have stopped him even if she tried. So she went with him. She trained as a nurse and went to work in a hospital in Birmingham. They wrote her parents every week. Did Thomas come home? Bridget set her teacup down. She did not answer right away. He went missing, she said, in 1945, in Germany. The army wrote her a letter. Missing in action. Not confirmed dead. Not confirmed dead. That was the worst part, Pet. If they had told her he was dead, she could have grieved, buried him in her heart, moved on. But they told her he was missing, so she waited. For how long? Bridget's eyes were wet now. She did not let the tears fall, but they sat there, bright, old, for the rest of her life, Pet. She waited for the rest of her life. Ada did not speak. She could not. Bridget kept talking, slowly. She came back to the cottage in 1946, after the war ended. She kept writing the army. She kept writing the British government. She kept writing everyone she could think of, asking, "Is there any news, any record, anything at all?" The answer was always the same. He is missing. Presumed dead. We are sorry. There is nothing more we can tell you. And she stayed. She stayed for 7 more years in this cottage, alone. She kept it spotless. She cooked at the hearth every day. She set 2 places at the table, one for her, one for Thomas, in case he came home. Ada looked at the empty wooden table in the middle of the cottage. She tried to picture it. 2 place settings, a woman alone, the hearth burning, every night, for 7 years. What happened in 1953? Ada asked. She left. She went to America. She had a cousin in New York. She said she could not stay here anymore. She said the cottage was killing her with hope. She said she had to go somewhere that did not remember Thomas. Somewhere that would let her stop waiting. Did she stop waiting? Bridget smiled. A small, sad smile. No pet. She died in New York in 1978. They told me she never married again. They told me she lived alone in a small apartment above a bakery. They told me she had a photograph of Thomas on her bedside table the day she died. Ada put her face in her hands. She was not crying. She was just holding her face. She thought about a tall woman with slate-colored eyes, setting 2 plates at a table for 7 years. She thought about a cottage waiting for a man who was never coming home. She thought about her own grandmother, setting things down for someone she would never meet. She thought about her own self, sitting on a hearthstone, with a broom in her hand. She thought, the hearth holds what the heart cannot carry. She did not yet know that those exact words were waiting for her, written in ink, under the floor she was sitting on. But she would know soon. Bridget stayed for 2 hours. She told Ada more stories about the dances at the parish hall in 1948, about how Maggie would come alone and sit by the window, about how the men of the village would ask her to dance, about how she always said no, politely, quietly, always no. About how the women of the village brought Maggie bread and jam and tea for 7 years, so she would not be entirely alone. About how the village mourned when she finally left. Bridget told Ada about the day Maggie left in 1953. April, a cold spring morning. A horse cart waiting at the end of the lane. Maggie had said goodbye to no one. She had simply walked down the lane with one suitcase, got in the cart, did not look back. She left everything in the cottage, Bridget said. The furniture, the dishes, the bedding. We thought she would come back for it. Some of the women in the village offered to box it up for her, to send it to America. She said no. She said, let it stay where it is. Someday someone else will need it. Bridget looked at Ada. That was 72 years ago, pet. 72 years. And no one came. Not one person. Until you. Ada did not know what to say. She did not say anything. Bridget stood up slowly, cane in hand, knees creaking. I'll be going now, pet. I get tired easily these days, but I'll come back. Tomorrow, or the day after, if you'd like. Please. Yes. Please come back. I'll bring more bread. Thank you. Bridget started toward the door. At the door, she paused. She turned around. She looked at the hearth. She said, "There was one thing I always wondered about Pet." What? Before she left, the week before, Maggie spent 2 days in this cottage alone with the door locked. She would not let anyone in, not even her oldest friend. We knew she was doing something. We did not know what. Bridget paused. She looked at Ada. Her old eyes were sharp. I have always wondered what she was doing in here. Those 2 days, before she left. You think she was hiding something? I think, Pet, that if she left something in this cottage, it was waiting for someone. For who? Bridget smiled. That's the part I never knew. She tapped her cane on the flagstone. Twice. Good night, Adeze. Good night, Bridget. The old woman walked out. The oak door closed slowly behind her. Ada sat on the hearthstone for a long time after that. She did not move. She did not sweep. She just sat there, looking at the hearth, looking at the floor. She thought about a woman locking herself in a cottage for 2 days. She thought about why a woman would do that. She thought about hiding places. She thought about her grandmother's letter. If you ever find yourself with nowhere else to go, go to the west coast of Ireland. Find a place with sea, with gray stone, with an old hearth. Old hearth. Ada looked down at the hearthstone she was sitting on. She had been sitting on it for 2 days, sweeping around it, cleaning the inside of the firebox, scrubbing the mantel. But she had not really looked at the hearthstone itself. She looked at it now. She slid off it onto the flagstone floor. She crouched down. She ran her fingertips along the edge of the hearthstone, along the seam where it met the surrounding floor. There. A gap. A small gap. Not a crack in the stone. A deliberate gap. As if the hearthstone was not mortared in place like the rest of the flagstones. Ada brushed away 70 years of dust and soot from the gap. The edge of the hearthstone was smooth. It had been cut to sit loose. She pressed down on one corner. Nothing happened. She pressed down on the opposite corner. The stone rocked, just slightly, but it rocked. It was not fixed to the ground. It was resting on something. Ada stood up. Her heart was beating too fast. She told herself, "It's just a loose stone. It's just a loose stone. It's probably just where the original mason set it. They probably set it loose so they could clean under it. But she did not believe herself. She walked out into the garden. She found a short length of iron rod. It might once have been part of a fence post. It was rusted but still strong. She brought it back inside. She wedged one end into the gap, along the edge of the hearthstone. She leaned her weight on the other end. The stone lifted. Slowly. It was incredibly heavy. Maybe 200 pounds. But the leverage of the iron rod was enough. She tipped it up on one edge. She used her knee to keep it propped up. She looked down into the cavity beneath the hearthstone. It was not a natural gap in the flagstones. It was a chamber, lined with flat stones on all four sides, about 2 feet wide, about 3 feet long, about 2 feet deep. And in the chamber was a bundle wrapped in oilcloth, tied with heavy string. Ada stopped breathing. She let the hearthstone tip back down. Carefully, carefully. So she did not drop it. So she did not crush the bundle underneath. The stone settled back into place. Ada sat on the floor next to it for 5 full minutes. She did not move. She did not breathe properly. She just sat there. And then she got up. She lifted the hearthstone again. With the iron rod, she propped it up with her knee. She reached down into the chamber. She lifted out the bundle. It was heavy. It was very heavy. She set it on the flagstone floor. She lowered the hearthstone back into place. She knelt down next to the bundle. The oilcloth was dark with age, but intact. She untied the string. The string came apart easily in her fingers, as if it had been waiting to be untied. She unfolded the oilcloth. There were 3 things inside. A small tin box with a hinged lid, a leather-bound book, a wooden rosary. Ada looked at them for a long time. Then she picked up the tin box first. She opened it. Inside were small gold objects, wrapped in waxed paper. She unwrapped them carefully, one by one. A pair of earrings with garnet stones, a thin gold chain with a small cross pendant, a ring with a single deep blue stone. Old, worn, beautiful. A gold locket on a chain. Ada opened the locket with her fingernail. Inside was a tiny photograph. A young man with dark hair and a mustache. A young woman in a pale dress with flowers in her hair. Both of them looking solemnly at the camera. The way people looked at cameras 100 years ago, as if the camera might steal their soul. Ada knew who they were, Maggie and Thomas. She closed the locket. She set it on the flagstone floor next to the other jewelry. Then she picked up the leather book. The book was a journal. She opened it. The pages were thick paper, cream-colored. The ink had faded from black to a soft brown. She read the first entry. September 12th, 1939. Maggie Doherty. My husband Thomas and I are leaving Achill tonight. We are going to England. Thomas has joined the British Army. He says he cannot sit still while the world burns. I will work in a hospital in Birmingham. I do not know if we will come back. I am hiding this journal beneath the hearthstone, where my grandmother used to hide things during the black and tan days. With it, I am leaving the small jewelry that has been in our families for 2 generations, and what little savings Thomas and I have. If we come home, we will lift this stone again. If we do not let it stay here until someone needs it. The hearth holds what the heart cannot carry. Maggie. Ada read the entry. She read it again. She put one hand over her mouth. She turned the page. The next entry was from 1942. Thomas is in North Africa. I have not heard from him in 5 weeks. They say 5 weeks is not unusual. I do not believe them. But I pray. Every night I pray. I have come back to the cottage on leave. The hearth is cold. The chamber is intact. I am adding what I have saved from my hospital wages. It is not much, but it is something. The next entry was from 1944. Thomas is in Germany. I have not heard from him in 11 weeks. They say this is normal. They say this is to be expected. I am 31 years old. I have been a wife for 7 years. I have been a widow in my heart for some time now. I will not write that word again. I will wait. The next entry was the one Ada knew was coming. She did not want to read it. She read it anyway. April 11th, 1945. Thomas is missing. The letter from the army arrived yesterday. Missing in action. Somewhere east of the Rhine. The letter does not say he is dead. The letter says he is missing. Not confirmed. I have been sitting in this cottage for 9 hours. I have not eaten. I have not slept. The hearth is cold. I will not believe he is dead. I will not. I will wait. Ada turned the page. The next entry was dated 1953, 8 years later. The handwriting had changed. It was older, tireder, smaller. April 4th, 1953. Maggie Doherty. I am leaving the cottage today. I am going to America. My cousin Bridie will meet me in New York. I am 40 years old. There is nothing left for me here. Or rather, there is everything left for me here. And I cannot bear to look at it anymore. Thomas has not come home. I do not know if he is dead. I do not know if he is alive. The British government has stopped writing me back. The army has closed his file. They say there is nothing more to be done. They say I should accept it. I will not accept it. I will wait in America instead. Perhaps a different sea will hold a different answer. I am leaving everything beneath the hearthstone as it was. I did not have the heart to dig it up. The jewelry, the money, this journal. Let it stay where it has been since 1939. If Thomas ever comes home and finds the cottage empty, Perhaps he will find the chamber. Perhaps he will know I waited. If he does not come, then someone else will come. I do not know who you are, you who are reading this, but you will not be a stranger to me. Not really. You will be a stranger to the world, but not to this place. The cottage will know you if you deserve to stay. I hope it knows you well. Margaret Doherty, April 1953. Ada closed the journal. She put it down on the flagstone. She wrapped her arms around her knees. She rocked back and forth slightly. She did not cry. She did not have any crying left. She had cried herself out 3 weeks ago. She just rocked, back and forth, sitting on the cold flagstone floor of a cottage on the west coast of Ireland, next to a pile of jewelry, and a journal, and a wooden rosary, and a small fortune in old currency she had not yet counted. She brought the bundle to Mulligan's that night. She did not know what else to do. She wrapped everything back up in the oilcloth. She tied the string. She put the bundle in her tote bag. She walked the 3 miles back to the village. She walked into the pub. She went up to her room. She locked the door. She unwrapped the bundle again. She laid everything out on the small bed. The jewelry, the journal, the rosary. She counted the money. There was a small cloth pouch she had not noticed before, tucked into the bottom of the oilcloth. She opened it. Inside was paper money, old Irish pounds, British pound notes, bundled with thin twine. She counted slowly. Some of the bills were from the 1940s, some from the late 1930s, a few from the 1920s, old, beautifully old, worth nothing at face value anymore, but worth something else. She did not know how much. She just knew it was a lot. She lay on the bed. She stared at the ceiling. She did not sleep. She thought about her grandmother's letter. A long time ago, during the war, my brother Obi was a sailor in the Royal Navy. A sailor in the Royal Navy, hidden in a stone cottage on the west coast of Ireland, saved by an Irish woman whose husband was at war. Ada sat up. She turned on the lamp. She picked up Maggie's journal again. She turned the pages slowly, looking for it, knowing she would find it, hoping she would not. She found it on a page near the back of the journal, loose between the leather binding and the back end paper. A single small photograph, about 2 inches by 3 inches, black and white, yellowed at the edges. Ada lifted it out very carefully. The photograph showed 2 people standing in front of the cottage. The cottage looked the same, or almost. The chimney was straight in the photograph. The roof was whole. On the left was Maggie. Ada recognized her now. Tall, thin, brown hair pulled back, slate-colored eyes, not smiling, looking directly at the camera. On the right was a young man, a young black man, in a dark sweater. the kind sailors wore, his hair cut short, his face thin, his eyes serious. He was not smiling either. Maggie's hand was on his shoulder, just lightly, the way you would touch a brother. On the back of the photograph in faded pencil O. Summer of 44. Ada sat on the edge of the bed. She held the photograph in both hands. She could feel her heart beating in her throat. Oh, Obi, her grandmother's brother, hidden in this cottage. In the summer of 1944, she thought. That is not possible, she thought. That is not possible. That is too much. That is too much for one cottage to know. That is too much for one ring to know. That is too much, she thought. Rings know things. She did not believe her own grandmother for half her life. Now she believed. In the morning, she walked to the post office in the village. She bought a manila envelope, €2. She put the photograph inside it. She put the envelope in her tote bag. She walked to the bus stop. She caught the 11:30 bus to Westport. She had decided in the night. She was going to a solicitor. Bridget had told her there was a good one in Westport, a woman who specialized in rural property, Sheila Hennessy. Bridget had given her the address. The bus ride took an hour. Ada looked out the window. Sheep, stone walls, rolling hills. She thought, 2 days ago, I did not know any of this existed. I did not know Maggie Doherty existed. I did not know my grandmother's brother had been saved by an Irish woman during the war. I did not know I owned a cottage. I did not know I owned anything. And now I know all of it. Now I know all of it. And I cannot put it back. C.L. Hennessy's office was on a quiet street off the main square in Westport. A small brass plate on the door. A bell that rang when Ada pushed the door open. A waiting room with 2 chairs and a vase of fresh daffodils. A woman came out. She was maybe 45. Dark hair in a bob. A gray wool suit, reading glasses pushed up on her head. Miss Nwosu, yes. Sheila Hennessy, please come through. Celia's office was small. Bookshelves, a desk, a window looking out at a stone wall. She closed the door. She sat down behind the desk. She gestured for Ada to sit across from her. Bridget called me yesterday afternoon. She told me you had bought the Doherty cottage. Yes. For €1. Yes. And she told me you found something. Yes. Sheila nodded. Tell me everything, Ada. From the beginning. Take your time. Ada took her time. She told Sheila about her grandmother. About the letter in the suitcase, about Obi, about flying to Ireland, about Nuala Carney, about the cottage, about Bridget, about the hearthstone. She put the bundle on Sheila's desk. She unwrapped it. Sheila looked at the jewelry. The journal, the rosary, the money, the photograph, for a long time. Then she said. Under Irish law, a daisy, everything that was in that cottage now belongs to you. You hold legal title. There is nothing in Maggie Doherty's writing that suggests any other intent. In fact, she clearly states it is for whoever finds it. I know. So legally there is nothing for us to do. I know. But Seela paused. She looked at the photograph of the young black sailor. You want me to find out what happened to him? Ada nodded. Yes, please. His name was Obi, your grandmother's brother. Obi Nwosu. He was 19 when he went to war. He was 20 when he came home. He lived another 45 years. He died in Nigeria in 1991. And you think he was here? I think he was here. In the summer of 1944. I think Maggie hid him. For how long? I don't know. Sila picked up the photograph. She looked at it carefully. She turned it over. She read the pencil writing. She looked up at Ada. I have a friend in Dublin, at the National Archives. The Royal Navy maintained records of foreign sailors who served during the war, particularly those who went missing. Lagos sent a number of volunteers. There would be a record. Can you find it? I can try. How long? A few weeks, maybe less. These archives are well organized. Ada exhaled. She had not realized she was holding her breath. Thank you. You're welcome, Ada. A pause. Then Seela said, Do your parents know you're here? Ada looked at her hands. Yes. Have you spoken to them? I texted them my number when I got here. And nothing. Seela nodded slowly. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she said, My father did not speak to me for 2 years after I told him I was leaving the convent to go to law school. I was 26, old enough to make my own decisions. He did not see it that way. 2 years adaeze, 2 years of silence. And then one day he called me, and he said, Seela, I have been wrong. I am ready to talk now. He called you. He called me. And you talked. And we talked. And it took a long time. But eventually, we found each other again. We found a different father and a different daughter. The ones we had been to each other, those were gone. But the ones we became, those were also good, in their own way. Ada nodded, slowly. I don't know if my parents will call. They might not, Adaeze. I have to tell you that. They might not. I know. But sometimes people do. I know. Seela pulled a yellow legal pad toward her. She picked up a pen. Let's get started, Ada. Tell me everything you know about Obi Nwosu. Birth date, hometown, anything your grandmother wrote in her letter. I'll send the inquiry to Dublin this afternoon. Ada told her everything. It took almost 2 hours. When Ada left Seela's office, the afternoon was already turning gray. A cold rain had started to fall. She pulled her jacket tighter and walked back to the bus stop. She caught the last bus back to Achill Sound. She got off at the village. She walked to Mulligan's. She went up to her room. She sat on the bed. She picked up her phone again. She looked at her mother's name in her contacts. This time she pressed the call button. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Voicemail. The familiar voice. Hi, you've reached Kioma Nwosu. Please leave a message. The beep. Ada took a breath. She said, Mom, it's me. I'm calling because I have a question. Just one question. It's about Grandma. She paused. Did Grandma have a brother named Obi who went to the war? I need to know. Please call me back. She paused again. That's all. Just that question. Thank you. She hung up. She put the phone face down on the bed. She lay back on the pillow. She closed her eyes. She did not expect a reply. She told herself she did not expect a reply. She was not waiting. She was not waiting. Her phone rang at 9:47 that night. Ada was already in bed. The lamp was on. She was reading Maggie's journal again. For the 3rd time. The phone rang on the small table by the bed. She looked at the screen. Mom. She did not answer for a moment. She just looked at the name. Then she picked up. Hello. A long pause on the other end. Then, a breath. A small, choked breath. A daisy. Mom. A daisy. Her mother's voice was shaking. Ada had never heard her mother's voice shake before. Not once. In 18 years. Mom. His name was Obi. Yes. Yes, a daisy. Your grandmother had a brother named Obi. He went to the war. He came back. He did not speak about it. Why are you asking? Why? Mom, I need to tell you something. Tell me. Ada looked at the photograph on the bedside table next to her. Maggie. Obi. Standing in front of a stone cottage. Summer of 44. She took a breath. Mom, I think I know where he was. During the war. The months he was missing. A long pause. Where? Here. He was here, Mom. In Ireland. In this cottage. I think Maggie Doherty saved his life. Silence on the other end of the phone. A long, long silence. Then her mother said, very quietly, Adaeze, please, tell me everything. Ada told her everything. The line was very quiet on her mother's end. Sometimes Ada could hear her breathing. Sometimes she heard a sound that might have been a sob quickly covered. When Ada finished, her mother said, I have to call you back. I have to. I have to go. I will call you back. Mom, I love you, Adayeze. The line went dead. Ada sat there, holding the phone, for a long time. Her mother had not said I love you to her in 18 years. Not like that. Not the way you say it when you mean it. Not the way you say it when your daughter is 4,000 miles away and might not be coming home. Ada put the phone down on the bedside table. She turned off the lamp. She lay in the dark. She listened to the wind move outside the window. Her mother did not call back the next day, or the day after. Ada checked her phone every hour, then every 30 minutes, then every 10. Nothing. She told herself she was not waiting. She was waiting. On the third morning, Ada went back to the cottage anyway. Because what else was there to do? Because the floor still needed scrubbing. Because the roof still needed fixing. Because if she sat in the small room above Mulligan's one more day, she was going to lose her mind. So she walked the 3 miles. The path was familiar now. Her feet knew the curve of it, the place where a stone stuck up an inch above the rest, the place where the grass got soft after rain. She pushed open the oak door. She stepped inside. The cottage smelled like soap now, like clean stone, like the wood polish she had rubbed into the rafters yesterday. It smelled like a place that was being loved again. She got down on her knees in front of the hearth. She started scrubbing the flagstones near the firebox. Soft brush, hot water, a little vinegar. The way Bridget had told her. She had been working for an hour when she heard footsteps on the path. Slow, a cane tapping. Ada smiled before Bridget even reached the door. You came back. Of course I came back, pet. I said I would. Bridget came in. She had a small basket today. Tea, biscuits, a jar of honey from her own bees. She sat down on the wooden chair Ada had set near the table. She looked at the cottage. It's coming back to life. Slowly. Slow is the only way, pet. Stone doesn't like to be rushed. Ada sat back on her heels. She wiped her hands on a rag. Bridget was looking at her carefully. Something is different about you today. Is it? You're not telling me something. Bridget. Out with it, pet. I am 88 years old. I do not have time for the long version. Ada smiled despite herself. I found something. In the cottage. Under the hearthstone. Bridget did not look surprised. Did you now? You knew. I suspected. You said you didn't know what she hid. I didn't. But I knew she hid something. There's a difference. Ada stood up. She walked to her tote bag in the corner. She came back with the bundle. She set it on the table. She unwrapped it slowly. The jewelry, the journal, the rosary, the photograph. Bridget looked at each thing. She did not touch any of it. She just looked. When her eyes fell on the photograph, she went very still. Ada watched her. Bridget. The old woman did not answer for a long time. She picked up the photograph with 2 fingers, carefully, like it was made of paper that might fall apart. She held it close to her face. That's the cottage. Yes. That's Maggie. Yes. And that boy. That young man. Yes. Bridget did not look up from the photograph. I saw him. Ada's breath stopped. What? I saw him pet. Once. I was 7 years old. Summer of 1944. I was walking home from my grandmother's house. I came up the path. The same path you walk every day. I saw a man sitting in Maggie's garden. He was sitting on the stone wall. He was peeling potatoes for her. Bridget. I remember because he was black. I had never seen a black man before. I was 7. I stopped on the path. I stared. He saw me staring. He waved at me. He smiled. You waved back. I ran home pet. I was 7. I ran home and I told my mother I had seen a brown man at Mrs. Doherty's house. My mother grabbed me by the shoulders. She looked into my eyes. She said, Bridget, you did not see anything. Do you understand me? You did not see anything at Mrs. Doherty's house. We do not speak about Mrs. Doherty's garden. And you didn't. I did not speak of it, not for 81 years. Bridget set the photograph down on the table. Her hand was trembling. I have wondered, all my life, who that man was, where he came from, where he went. I have wondered if I dreamed him. I have wondered if my mother lied to me. I have wondered, Bridget. And now I'm sitting in his memory again. Ada knelt down next to the old woman's chair. She took Bridget's hand. The hand was thin. The skin was paper. The bones underneath the skin were like small birds. His name was Obi. Obi Nwosu. He was my grandmother's older brother. Bridget closed her eyes. A tear slid out from under each closed lid. She did not wipe them away. Pet. I know. Pet. The hearth knew you. I know. The hearth knew you all along. They sat like that for a long time. 2 women, 80 years apart, holding hands in a cottage on the edge of the world. Bridget stayed for the whole afternoon. She told Ada more stories about Maggie in 1946 when she came back from England. Pale, thin, eyes like a person who had stopped sleeping. About the way Maggie would walk down to the post office every morning during the war years, asking for letters, asking if anything had come, knowing nothing had come, asking anyway. About the way Maggie planted roses on the south wall of the cottage after Thomas went missing. Climbing roses, red ones. Bridget had asked her once why she planted them. For when Thomas comes home, Maggie had said, he will see them from the path. He will know I waited. The roses on the south wall were still there, wild, tangled, 80 years old, still climbing. When Bridget left in the late afternoon, she paused at the door. She turned back. She looked at Ada. She said, "Pet, I am very tired today. I think I will sleep well tonight." "Sleep well, Bridget?" "Adeyeze." "Yes, I have lived in this parish for 88 years. I have buried my parents. I have buried my husband. I have buried 2 of my own children. And I have wondered all my life who that brown man in the garden was. And now you know. And now I know. Is it good to know?" The old woman thought about it for a long time. "It is good to know, Pet. It is very good to know." She tapped her cane on the flagstone. She walked out. The oak door closed slowly behind her. Ada did not know it then, but that was the last time she would see Bridget alive. In the days that followed, the cottage began to wake up. Ada hired a stonemason. His name was Cormac Devlin. He was 63 years old. He lived 2 villages over. He had been restoring old cottages since he was 16. Bridget had recommended him before she had grown too tired to walk over again. He came on a Monday morning in a rusted blue truck. He walked through the cottage slowly. He ran his hands along the walls. He looked up at the rafters. He stepped outside and looked at the chimney. He came back in. He sat down on a wooden chair. "The bones of this place are good, miss. You think you can fix the roof? I can fix the roof, I can fix the chimney, I can fix the broken section of slate. It will take me 3 months, maybe 4. How much?" He named a number. It was a fair number. Ada had already sold 2 of Maggie's gold pieces to an antiques dealer in Galway. The garnet earrings, the gold locket, 11,000 euros for the 2 of them. The dealer had nearly wept when he saw the locket, late Victorian, beautifully preserved. She had the money. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow." So Cormac and his son started the next day. The sound of hammers and chisels filled the air around the cottage. Ada worked with them sometimes. Cormac taught her to mix the traditional lime mortar that he used. He showed her how the old masons had set the cornerstones. He told her stories about other cottages he had restored, about the families who had come back to claim land their grandparents had left behind. He never asked Ada about her family. He just worked. He was the kind of man who knew when not to ask. Sheila called 5 days after Bridget's last visit. Ada was at the cottage. She had bought a small camp stove. She had bought a kettle. She was learning to make tea on the stove because she could not yet light the hearth. The phone rang. She picked it up. "Adeyeze, it's Sheila. I have news from Dublin." Ada sat down on the hearthstone. "Tell me." "The records came back yesterday. I have them in front of me." "Tell me." "Obi Nwosu, born Lagos 18 of November 1924. Volunteered for the Royal Navy in 1943. Served on a merchant convoy escort. His ship was torpedoed off the coast of Donegal on the 29th of May, 1944. He survived. He survived. Records show he was picked up by an Irish fishing boat. brought ashore near a village called Belmullet on the Mayo coast. Belmullet, about 60 miles north of where you are. He was taken to a local doctor, treated for hypothermia. Then he disappeared from official records. Disappeared. From British records, yes. There is no entry on him for almost 5 months. Nothing. Then in late October of 1944, his name appears again, listed as a deckhand on a merchant ship out of Galway, bound for Lagos, listed as a Nigerian citizen, not a British serviceman. He went home. He went home, Ada. He went home on a merchant ship as a civilian. The Royal Navy never recovered him as one of their own. He was officially declared missing, presumed dead, in February of 1945. His family in Lagos was informed. So when he came home, his mother had buried him already, Ada. In her heart. Ada closed her eyes. She thought, my great-grandmother held a funeral for her son. And then he walked in the door. And no one ever talked about where he had been, she said. 5 months. He was missing for 5 months. Yes. And Maggie was here. The whole time. Yes. So she hid him. For at least part of that time. Probably most of it. The doctor in Belmullet would have wanted him in a hospital. The Royal Navy would have wanted him back in service. He would not have wanted either. He was 19. He had nearly drowned. He had been at sea for months. He had watched men he knew die in the water. Sile. Yes, Ada. How did he get to Maggie? I don't know, pet. The records do not say. But Belmullet is not far. Word travels in places like this. Someone knew Maggie was alone. Someone knew her husband was at war. Someone knew she had a cottage on the coast where a man could disappear for a while. And she said yes. She said yes. Ada was quiet. She looked at the hearth. She looked at the place under it, where the chamber was, where the jewelry had waited, where the journal had waited, where the photograph had waited. She said, Sila. Yes. Did Obi have a family? Did he have children? Did he know what happened to Maggie? A pause. I don't know if he ever found her, Ada. I would have to do more research, but I doubt it. By the time the war ended, Maggie was on her way back from England. By the time Obi was settled in Lagos, the world had moved on. They had no way to find each other. The British government would not have given Obi her address. Maggie would not have known how to find him in Lagos. So she never knew he survived. She might not have pet. And he never knew she stayed alone. He might not have known. Ada looked at the cottage. She thought, all these years, they never knew about each other. After the war ended, she did not know he had made it home. He did not know she had waited. She said, Sile, I have to tell my mother. You should adaeze. I have to. Yes. Ada hung up. She sat on the hearthstone for a long time. Then she picked up her phone. She called her mother. Her mother picked up on the first ring. Adeyeze. Mom, I have been waiting for you to call. Mom, I have news. Tell me, Adeyeze. Tell me everything. Ada told her. She did not stop for breath. She did not slow down. She told her about the records, about the torpedoed convoy ship, about Belle Mullet, about the missing 5 months, about Maggie, about the chamber under the hearthstone, about the journal, about the photograph. When she finished, her mother was crying, quietly. The kind of crying you do when you have been holding something inside for a very long time, and a single thread comes loose, and the whole thing falls open. Mom, Adeyeze. Mom, are you okay? Adeyeze, your grandmother, Ifeoma. She told me once, just once. When I was 19 years old, she told me that Obi had been saved during the war by an Irish woman, that he had told her on his deathbed, that she had promised him she would find the woman and thank her, that she never did. Mom, I forgot, Adeyeze, I forgot. I was 19. I had other things to think about. I forgot. Mom, it's okay. It is not okay. It is not okay, Adeyeze. Your grandmother carried that promise for 30 years. I carried it for one afternoon, and I forgot it. And now you. You went to Ireland. You found her. You found her, and you didn't even know you were looking. Mom, the ring. The ring. The ring on your finger. Adeyeze, my mother told me. When she gave it to you, she told me she had told you that rings know things. I laughed at her. I thought she was being dramatic. I am not a dramatic person, Adeyeze. I am a practical person. I forgot. Mom, please. I forgot so many things, Adeyeze. There was a long pause. Ada listened to her mother breathe. Then her mother said, I want to come. To Ireland. To Ireland. To you. To the cottage. I want to see it. I want to see where my uncle was hidden. I want to see where the promise was kept. I want. She stopped. I want to see my daughter. Ada put her hand over her mouth. She did not speak. She could not speak. Her mother said, Adeyeze, can I come? Yes, Mom. When can I come? Whenever you want. This week. This week. I will come this week. Okay. Your father. What about him? A pause. He is not ready, Adeyeze. He is still. He is still where he was. Okay. He will be ready. Someday. But not yet. Okay, Mom. I will come alone. Okay. Is that all right? Ada thought about it. She thought about it for a long moment. She thought about her father. about the man who had sat at the kitchen table with the acceptance letter face up between his hands, about the man who had not looked up. She thought. 2 out of 2 would have been a fairy tale. 1 out of 2 is a real story. She said, "It's all right, Mom. I love you, Adaeze. I love you too, Mom." Her mother arrived in Westport on a Tuesday afternoon. Ada was waiting at the train station. She watched the train come in. She watched the doors open. She watched people get off. Tourists with backpacks, a young couple with a dog, an older man with a fishing rod. And then her mother, Chioma Nwosu, 54 years old, a small woman with her hair in a low bun, a gray wool coat, a small wheeled suitcase, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Her mother saw her. Her mother stopped walking. She did not move. She stood on the platform. She just looked. Ada walked toward her. When she got close enough, her mother dropped the handle of her suitcase. She did not say anything. She just opened her arms. Ada walked into them. The two of them stood on the platform for a long time. People walked past them. Nobody looked. Or if they did, nobody said anything. Because sometimes you see two women hugging on a train platform, and you leave them alone. Her mother stayed at Mulligan's that night. In the room next to Ada's, they had dinner downstairs. Shepherd's pie, brown bread, a pot of tea. Her mother did not say much. She kept looking at Ada, as if she was checking to make sure Ada was real, as if she was afraid Ada would disappear if she looked away. After dinner, they went up to Ada's room. Ada showed her the journal. Her mother read it slowly, cover to cover. She read it once. Then she read it again. When she finished, she closed the journal. She put her hand flat on the leather cover. She said, "This woman, Maggie, yes, she is family Adaeze. She is family to us. I know. She saved my uncle. Yes. My uncle, who I barely knew, who I met twice when I was a child, who never spoke, who sat in the corner of my grandmother's parlor and watched the children play, who I thought was a strange man, who I did not understand. Mom, I never asked about him, Adaeze. I never asked my grandmother why he was so quiet. I never asked your grandmother why she cried whenever his name came up. I never asked." She looked at Ada. "I have asked nothing my whole life. I have asked nothing because I have been afraid to ask. I've been afraid that asking would mean I had to know. And I have not wanted to know. I have not wanted to know about my uncle. I have not wanted to know about my own mother. I have not wanted to know about you, Adaeze. I have not wanted to know my own daughter. Mom, please. I have to say this, Adaeze. I have to say it out loud, or I will lose my courage. Let me say it. Ada nodded. She did not speak. When you brought me that acceptance letter. You didn't bring it. Dad found it. When your father found the acceptance letter, I knew immediately that you were going to be a writer, that you were going to leave us, that you were going to live a life I could not understand, that you were going to ask questions I had spent my whole life refusing to ask. And it terrified me, Adaeze. It terrified me. So I did what my mother would have done. I packed your suitcase. I put it by the door. Mom, your grandmother packed my suitcase too, Adaeze. When I was 22, when I told her I was going to America to be with your father, she packed my suitcase. She put it by the door. She said, if you must go, then go. Grandma did that to you. She did, Adaeze. She did the same thing. And I forgave her. I forgave her because I understood. She was protecting herself. She could not bear to watch me go. So she pushed me out the door. Mom, I did the same thing to you. I am ashamed, Adaeze. I am so ashamed. I told myself it was for your own good. I told myself you needed to learn. But I was protecting myself. I was. I could not bear to watch you become a writer and ask all the questions I had refused to ask. So I pushed you out the door. I packed your suitcase. I put $300 in an envelope, and I closed the door. She put her face in her hands. And you went, Adaeze. You went, and you found her. Mom, you found her. Adaeze, you found Maggie. I know. You kept the promise that your grandmother gave me, that I never kept. She was crying, quietly. The kind of crying you do when you have realized something about yourself that you cannot unrealize. Ada sat next to her on the bed. She put her arm around her mother's shoulders. For the first time in her life, as far as she could remember, she comforted her mother. The two of them stayed like that for a long time. In the morning, Ada took her mother to the cottage. They walked the 3 miles together. Her mother walked slowly. She was not used to the rough path. She wore the wrong shoes. But she did not complain. They came over the rise. The cottage was there. Smoke was not yet rising from the chimney. The chimney was still being rebuilt. Cormac had not yet finished his work, but the roof was nearly whole. The garden had been tidied. The roses on the south wall were beginning to bloom. Her mother stopped on the path. She put her hand to her mouth. She did not move for a long time. Then she said, Adaeze, it is beautiful. It is. You built this. I am building it. You, 18 years old, you are building this. With help, Mom. With help, yes, with help. The way it should be done. She walked the rest of the way slowly. She paused at the oak door. She put her hand on the wood. She traced the iron hinges with her fingers. Then she pushed the door open. She stepped inside. She stood in the middle of the room. She turned slowly, once, around. She looked at the flagstones, the walls, the beams, the windows, the hearth. She walked toward the hearth. She knelt down in front of it, the way a woman kneels down in church. She put her palm flat on the hearthstone. She stayed like that for a long time. She was speaking softly, in Igbo. Ada could not hear all of it, but she heard some. She heard her mother say her grandmother's name. She heard her mother say Obi. She heard her mother say Daluo. Thank you. Over and over. Daluo. 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 Ada stood in the doorway. She did not interrupt. When her mother finally lifted her hand from the hearthstone, she sat back on her heels. She turned to Ada. Adaeze. Yes, Mom. Come here. Ada walked over. She knelt down next to her mother. Her mother reached into her wool coat. She brought out a small leather-bound book. It was very old. The leather was cracked. The pages were yellowed. She handed it to Ada. What is this? It belonged to your grandmother. Mom. It is her journal, Adaeze. She kept it from 1960 until the year she died. I found it last month. I was packing up some of her things. I have been avoiding it for 5 years. After you left, I needed something to do. So I started packing. Ada took the journal. She opened it carefully. Her grandmother's handwriting. The same blue ink. The same careful loops and curves. Her mother said, "Turn to the back, Adaeze, the last entry." Ada turned to the back. The last entry was dated June 4th, 2020, 3 weeks before her grandmother died. The handwriting was shaky. The ink was lighter than the earlier pages, as if her grandmother had been writing with a hand that did not have much strength left. It said, "My Kioma, my daughter. I am writing this in case you read it. I am very tired now. The doctors say I will not see another summer. That is all right. I have seen many summers. I have a letter for Adaeze. I have hidden it in her suitcase. It is the only suitcase she has. Your father bought it for her last Christmas. I have slipped a letter into the lining. You will not find it unless you look very carefully. I do not want you to find it. The letter is for her, for when she needs it. I am afraid for her, Kioma. I am afraid you will do to her what I did to you. I see it in your eyes. I see how you look at her when she writes. I see how you look away. I know that look. I made that look once. Kioma, my daughter, listen to me now. I am telling you the only thing I have left to tell you. Adaeze is a writer. She is the kind of writer who will remember everything. The good things and the painful things. The brave things and the cowardly things. The promises kept and the promises broken. If you push her away, she will remember. If you keep her close, she will write you into a story that lasts beyond your life. Either way, she will write the truth. You cannot stop her. You can only choose what kind of truth she carries with her. I made my choice with you, Kioma. I pushed you away. You have written your own story since then. It is a good story. But there is a chapter where I am the villain. I know there is. I have read it in your silence for 30 years. Do not let Adaeze write that chapter about you, Kioma. Please, do not let her. I am tired now. I will close my eyes. I love you, my Kioma. I always have. I just did not know how to show you. I am sorry. Mama. June 2020. Ada read the entry. She read it again. Then she looked up at her mother. Her mother was crying again, but softly, almost peacefully, the way you cry when the worst part is behind you. Mom, I read this last week, Adaeze, after I hung up with you the first time. I had not opened the journal. I had been packing her things, but I had not read this. I read it last week. I read it that night. And I understood. Mom, I have been the villain in your story, Adaeze. I have been writing myself into it as the villain, the way my mother was the villain in mine. Mom, no. Listen, Adaeze, listen to me. I am not finished. Ada listened. Her mother took her hand, held it tight. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot. The morning of your 18th birthday is a morning that will always exist. I packed your suitcase. I put it by the door. I will carry that morning with me for the rest of my life. Mom, but Adaeze, listen. I am asking you. I am asking you for a chance, for a different chapter. Not to erase the one I wrote, but to write another one after it. A longer one. A better one. One where I am still your mother, even if I have been a bad one for a while. Ada did not answer right away. She sat there on the cold flagstone floor of a cottage on the west coast of Ireland, with her mother's hand in hers, with the hearthstone 2 feet away, with her grandmother's journal in her lap, with the wind moving through the half-finished chimney above them. She thought about Maggie Doherty, a tall woman with slate-colored eyes, who had set 2 plates at a table for 7 years, waiting for a man who never came home. She thought about Obi Nwosu, a 19-year-old boy who had been pulled out of the cold Atlantic by a fishing boat, who had been hidden by a stranger, who had gone home and never spoken about it. She thought about her grandmother, Ifeoma, who had carried a promise for 30 years, who had given her ring to a 12-year-old granddaughter, and said, "Rings know things." She thought about all the women who had loved badly, and the women who had loved well, and the women who had tried to love but didn't know how. She thought, if Maggie can wait for Thomas, and my grandmother can carry a promise for 30 years, and I can keep a promise I did not know I was making. Then maybe I can do this too. She looked at her mother. She said, "Okay, Mom. Okay. Okay. Let's write a longer chapter." Her mother put her face against Ada's shoulder. She sobbed. Just once. Then she breathed in. And she breathed out. And she sat up. And she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She said, "Adaize, show me where the chamber was." Ada showed her. She lifted the hearthstone with the iron rod, the way she had done it the first time. Her mother looked down into the empty chamber for a long moment. Then she said, "Adaize, put something back, something of yours." "Like what?" "Anything, whatever feels right." Ada thought about it. She reached into her tote bag. She took out her leather journal, the one her grandmother had given her when she was 12, the one she had carried out of the Brookline house on the morning of her 18th birthday, the one she had filled with 3 years of poems and notes and prayers. She tore one page from the back of the journal. It was a poem she had written the night before, about Maggie, about Obie, about the hearth. She folded the page. She placed it in the chamber. She lowered the hearthstone back down. She set it back into place. She wiped her hands on her jeans. She looked at her mother. Her mother nodded. "For the next one, Adaize." "The next one?" "The next person who comes. In 70 years. Or 100. Or 200. There will be another one. You will leave something for her." Ada smiled. "You think there will be another one?" Her mother smiled back. For the first time in a long time. A real smile. The kind that had been waiting in her mother's face for 30 years. "Adaize, the hearth holds what the heart cannot carry. There will always be another one." Her mother stayed in Achill Sound for 4 days. She helped Ada paint the wooden shelves above the mantel. She walked down to Mulligan's and met Aisling. She walked to the parish office and met Nuala Carney. Nuala made her tea. Nuala showed her the form Ada had signed. Nuala did not say anything about the morning of the suitcase. Mothers do not need to be told these things by strangers. On the 4th morning, her mother took the train back to Dublin. From Dublin, she would fly back to Boston, to Emeka, to a marriage that would have to bear what Keoma was now carrying. At the train station, she held Ada's face in both hands. She said, "I will tell your father everything, Adaize." "Okay. He may not come, not soon. Maybe not ever. I cannot promise. I know. But I will tell him, and I will keep telling him until he can hear." "Okay, Mom." The train came. The train left. Ada walked back to Mulligan's alone. The next day, she walked the 3 miles to the cottage, as she always had. The weeks after her mother left were quiet ones. Cormac and his son worked steadily on the chimney. Ada worked alongside them on the smaller things. She replaced the wooden shelves above the mantel. She sewed curtains by hand from a bolt of linen. She bought a small iron bed at an estate sale in Castlebar, a wooden table and 2 chairs. She set up a writing corner in the eastern window where the morning light came in clean and cold. She wrote every morning, pages and pages, about Maggie, about Obie, about her grandmother, about the cottage, about what it means to leave something behind for a stranger who will not be a stranger. She visited Bridget twice a week. Bridget had grown slower in the last weeks. She no longer walked the half-mile to the cottage. Ada walked the half-mile to her. They drank tea in Bridget's small parlor. They talked about Maggie, about the war, about things Bridget had not spoken of in 80 years. Then, one Tuesday morning, Ada walked over with a jar of marmalade she had bought at the post office. Bridget's daughter answered the door. Bridget's daughter was 62. She had come from Galway the night before because her mother had not answered the phone. Bridget had died in her sleep. It was the night before Christmas Eve. She had died in her own bed, in the cottage with the blue door, half a mile down the road, the way she had wanted to. The whole parish came to the funeral. Ada wore the only dark clothes she had. She stood near the back of the church. She listened to the priest say things about a woman who had lived 88 years in one parish, who had buried 2 husbands, who had outlived 2 children, who had remembered everyone. After the service, Ada walked to the front of the church. She placed a folded piece of paper on top of Bridget's casket. It was a poem about a 7-year-old girl who saw a brown man in a garden and waited 81 years to know his name. The poem ended with the line, "The hearth knew. The hearth was kind enough to wait." Ada did not read it aloud, but she left it. It went into the ground with Bridget. Spring came late that year. The chimney was finished in March. Cormac and his son set the last stone on a windy afternoon. They stepped back. They looked at it. Cormac took his cap off. He said, "She's a beauty, miss." He was right. Ada lit her first fire in the hearth that evening. She used peat she had bought from a neighbor named Padraig. Padraig was 68 years old. He cut peat from a small bog he owned a mile inland. He had been delivering peat to the cottage every Friday since the chimney work began. He always asked the same question when he arrived. "Need any more this week, miss?" Ada always paid him in cash. He always tipped his cap. She lit the first fire alone. She knelt down in front of the hearth. She laid a bed of small dry twigs. She set 2 small peat bricks on top. She lit a match. The fire caught slowly. The peat smoke filled the cottage with a smell Ada had never smelled before. It was the smell of every cottage in Ireland for 1,000 years. It was the smell of warmth that came out of the earth itself. She sat on the hearthstone. She watched the fire burn. She thought, "This hearth has not been lit since 1953. This hearth has not been warm in 72 years. This hearth has been waiting." She put her hand on the stone next to her. The stone was warm now. for the first time in 72 years. The book of poetry came out in May. It was published by a small press in Dublin. 200 copies. Soft cover. Cream pages. The title was What the Hearth Knew. The book was dedicated for Ifeoma, for Maggie, for Bridget, the 3 grandmothers I never had. Ada sent a copy to her mother, a copy to Nuala Carney, a copy to Sheila Hennessy, a copy to Bridget's daughter in Galway, a copy to Cormac Devlin, a copy to Padraig, who delivered Pete. She did not send a copy to her father. Not yet. Her father was still in Brookline. Her mother had told her on the phone that he was reading the journal her grandmother had left. Slowly. A page at a time. Sometimes he stopped for days between pages. Sometimes he sat in the kitchen with the journal closed in front of him and did not open it. But he was reading. That was enough for now. A small piece appeared in the Irish Times in early June. A 2-paragraph piece in the local interest section. A photograph of Ada standing in front of the cottage. The headline read, American teenager restores a kill cottage with story of wartime kindness. The piece was small, local. It did not go viral. It did not change the world. But it changed one thing. It made its way to a cousin of her mother's, a woman in Boston, who saw it shared on Facebook 2 days after it was published. The cousin called Ada's mother. Her mother and father read the piece together at the kitchen table in Brookline. Her father did not speak for a long time after reading it. Then he said, quietly, I would like to go to Ireland, Keoma. Her mother told Ada all of this on the phone. 2 weeks later, Ada was sitting on the stone bench outside the cottage door. The sun was setting over the Atlantic. The sky was gold and rose and violet. Her mother said, Adeyeze, your father wants to come. Ada was quiet for a moment. When, he says, whenever you will have him, Mom. I told him I would ask you Adeyeze. I told him you might say no. And he said, that is her right. If she says no, I will accept it. Ada looked at the sunset. She thought about her father. She thought about the man who had sat at the kitchen table with the acceptance letter face up, who had not looked up at her. She thought about that same man, a year later, sitting in a kitchen, reading his dead mother-in-law's journal, a page at a time. She thought, people can change, some of them, slowly, if they want to. She said, tell him to come, Mom. Tell him to come whenever he wants. You are sure. I am sure. Adeyeze, I love you. I love you too, Mom. The sun finished setting. The light faded. The first stars came out over the Atlantic. Ada sat on the stone bench for a long time, listening to the wind, listening to the sea, listening to the cottage behind her. She thought, I am 18 years old. I have a cottage in Ireland. I have published a book of poems. I have a mother who has come back to me. I have a father who is on his way. I have a grandmother who is still telling me what to do even though she has been dead for 5 years. I have a stranger who saved my great uncle, who left me a fortune under a hearthstone, who I have never met, who I will never meet. Who is family anyway? I have everything I need. She lifted her right hand. Her grandmother's turquoise ring glowed faintly in the last light. She touched it. The ring was warm. She whispered, Daluo, Grandma. Thank you. You were right. The ring knew. The cottage behind her was silent, but silent in the way a cottage is silent when it is full. Full of warmth, full of memory, full of a fire still glowing in the hearth. Adiaze Nwosu was 18 years old. She had been kicked out of her home. She had spent the last dollar she had on a crumbling stone cottage on the west coast of Ireland. It was the best dollar she had ever spent, because she had not bought a cottage. She had bought a chamber under a hearthstone, full of a stranger's love, set there for her, 86 years before she was born. She had bought a promise, carried by 3 women, across 2 continents, across 3 generations, for 81 years. She had bought a story, a long, slow, beautiful story about the women who leave things behind for strangers, who are never really strangers, who are family, in the way that matters most, which is not the way of blood, but the way of recognition, the way of one woman saying to another, across time, across the sea, across the silence that comes between mothers and daughters, I see you. I have been waiting for you. You are mine. You are home now. The hearth held what the heart could not carry. And then, one day, the heart was ready, and the hearth let it go.